Howdy, folks. Thanks for watching. So, uh, I've been in the transportation business for about 30 years ish, kind of from the 90s through till now. And I'm still in the transportation business. I'm a professional driver. I'll just put it that way. So, recently in the news, I heard about Uber and Lyft um, scamming. I call it a scam of paying themselves more than the drivers make, and so there comes a certain point when maybe the Uber and Lyft drivers need to strike, and not for, in a union thing, just deny service. If the From what it sounds like is that the Uber and Lyft are taking somewhere in the neighborhood of 70% of all the income and leaving the drivers with 30%. And so, I mean, you have all these drivers making all this money for these two companies, and they're getting literally screwed, regardless of if they're getting health insurance or anything like that. They have to make their livelihood from their income, their money, not from their insurance coverage and from working so hard just to barely make bills to stay alive. That's not the purpose of having a driving job. The driving job is for the driver to make 70% of his income from that job, regardless of insurance and such. So you have these so-called bosses at the top that are making all the money, and the drivers who are doing all the work and making the contacts and stuff like that, who are getting screwed, literally. Like a screwdriver and a screw, that kind of screwed. So anyway, just so that we can be politically correct in that way, the AI understands that we're not talking something that's in the midnight movie. Okay, so anyway, I understand the psychology behind it. Everybody's trying to grab as much as they can from everybody, especially those that can't defend themselves from being ripped off for their work. And that's the way I see it. They're being ripped off. These drivers. Now, I have to confess, right now I was in the process of getting myself started up with Uber and Lyft. I've been in driving transportation for 30 years. I'm really good at what I do. I've never had an accident. I've never had anybody get hurt on any of my vehicles. That I've driven over the years. I have one company that I've been with for 6 or 7 years now, and I've driven 500,000 miles. According to their stats, and here comes Jules again. What are you doing, Jules? I'm talking to him. So I understand that, the psychology of it, and the Lyft and Uber drivers are being taken advantage of. And you don't have to form a union to have a strike. You don't have to be of any nationality or anything like that to have one common interest, and that's to make money. Now, here's the thing: if this management, which is a small group compared to how many drivers are out there driving, all of a sudden, if all of the drivers for 1 day or 2 days said, "I'm staying home," all across the United States, Uber and Lyft drivers just say, "We're staying home." That's your way to show your solidarity in the sense that you're not really striking, you're just having a sick out and saying, hey, you guys are making all the money off of us and giving us peanuts or birdseed, whatever, depending upon what city you live in. So I have decided personally that I'm going to cancel my application for Uber and Lyft simply because I worked in the industry where I used to make really good money in Southern California, and my boss treated me really well. Now he was kind of a hothead, and we had our thing. I had kind of to describe him. He was a Jewish Italian from the Bronx, and when he was a little kid, his uncle was a mortician, and his job. This is what I was told. Now, this isn't what I know as facts, but his job was to take the blood in buckets from the mortician's thing and pour it down the drain. And that was his job when he was like 12 or 13 years old. So I don't know how true that is, but I do know that he was a real hothead, a Jewish Italian, tough guy. But he was always yelling all the time. We had one time, it was like 5 a.m. was when I was supposed to come in, and I was 5 minutes late, and they had a ride waiting for me. And he was there at work at 5 a.m., and he started going at me in a very loud way. And I don't respond well. I'm not a fighter. I wasn't socialized in such a way that you just instantly go into fisticuffs. Well, one thing, he was bigger than me, and bigger, taller, but not built the same. I'm built like a bulldog. So we got over 5 minutes, like I was 5 minutes late. So we got into a yelling match, and he fired me verbally. Yeah, because we were yelling. We got hot and we're yelling back and forth. Da, 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 da. And so he fired me, and I said, give me my money now. You fired me, give me my money now. And I knew exactly how much money he owed me from my trips and everything like that. And we were yelling back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And finally, it reached a point where I said, look, do you want me to drive or not? And he's like, go. But it was a shouting match. I think it was a good Italian cousins kind of thing. We weren't cousins at all. I mean, at all. But he knew that I was a valuable driver because I never had any complaints. I'm really good at driving fast and smooth, and I'm able to hold a conversation with people who are outside of my income bracket. That's the part of the good thing about having a semi-decent education. And plus, I love driving. But anyway, so I went back to work, and he never fired me. I didn't get my final paycheck, of course, and everything went back to normal. And from that point on, I started getting the some of the trips from Mann's Theater, downtown Los Angeles trips, whatever kind of galas they have like that. I would end up driving the senior people. I guess I was not intimidating or anything like that, but older people, I would drive them home. Wealthy people that I could only hope to emulate wealth-wise. I don't want to die old and wealthy. Of course, I have one of my nieces told me that my excursion is hers when I die, but that's okay. You're gonna have to wait. I'm not mentioning your name, but you know who you are. So anyway, this Uber and Lyft thing, I'm all for them striking, because they're getting ripped off. They're the ones that do all the business, make all the contacts, and everything like that. And you cannot survive off of tips. And my secret suspicion is that the Uber conglomerate, whatever it is, Uber Lyft conglomerate, are assuming that the drivers exist off their tips and everything like that. But they have to pay the maintenance on their cars. They have to pay for the tires. They have to pay for any parking fees, this, that, and the other. Oh, of course they can have an accountant that'll cost them $1,500 an hour to sort this all out so that they can get their $500 tax deduction. So, this is a situation where if Uber and Lyft all of a sudden collapsed and go out of business, it probably would be better for the drivers, because it's a need and it's an industry that can easily be filled without Lyft and Uber. And these cities that have these crazy rules and exorbitant fees and stuff like that are all of a sudden going to have to be dealing with a whole bunch of pirate drivers who still need to make money, and they're still going to make money. And if you're going to fill up the jails with these pirate drivers who don't have a way to have a system where they're regulated, that's their own darn fault. It's not the driver's fault, because most of the drivers, 90% of them, are decent people just trying to earn a living. They're not out. If they were out ripping people off, the whole system would collapse, because the people that rip passengers off, fee wise, fare wise, whatever, like that, those drivers get found out about, and then they're ostracized because they ruin the reputation of the other drivers. And I'm face to face here with Uber and Lyft. I had my paperwork ready and everything like that. You guys kept harassing me over and over again to show my insurance. I showed my insurance and this, that, and the other. And you know what? I can't help it if your system can't read my insurance stuff. And 5 years ago, when I did Uber, I made fairly good money, and I didn't have any complications with driving my Ford Excursion. As a matter of fact, I had some passengers that really liked it, riding in the Excursion. I had one lady that went from South Salt Lake all the way up to Park City, and she loved it. The fact that I picked her up in an Excursion, she's like, "Oh, this is way cool." But she was kind of a cowboy type person. But no, you can't let the corporations suck up the money. They suck up the insurance, everything like that, and when things go bad, the first thing they try to do is wheedle their way out of paying the insurance, or underpaying the insurance, or whatever, something that's in the contract that the driver's way too busy to figure out. That's just the way the American system works. It's almost like everybody's trying to rip everybody off for as much as they can get away with without collapsing the system. Well, what's happening right now is the Uber and Lyft management have decided that they're going to soak the drivers for as much as they can possibly do. So what's going to happen is you're going to end up with a whole bunch of pirate drivers, and there's going to be drivers that are going to leave the system, and they're going to be uninsured or whatever because of the greed at the upper management of Lyft and Uber. Now, I don't even know for sure if these people are based out of the United States, because every time I talk to people in person, I have nothing against immigrants. Trust me, my family is full of immigrants and whatever you want to say. But it's it. You can't let the Uber and Lyft management hammer and screw the drivers out of their jobs. And some of them are real professionals, and they have their regular passengers. And what's going to happen is if these drivers strike, these other drivers will turn into pirate drivers. But those pirate drivers who are really good at what they're doing, and there's no safety issues with these people are going to make money anyway. Now, the only thing I can see as a problem would be with the airports. And, of course, the airports, make all these millions of dollars, billions of dollars off of their airplane flights, and then charging the drivers again for being able to enter and exit the airports. Well, you got to figure every seat in that airplane, they got there somehow. So if you're taking 40% or 50% all of a sudden of people driving themselves to the airports are going to lose that revenue on that part, and they're going to lose revenue to pirates coming in and who know how to take advantage of the system. So it hurts everybody all the way around. The airports, the cities that make the money off the entrance fees and exit fees and this, that, and the other. And what might end up happening is Uber and Lyft are going to disappear, and then something else is going to happen with completely different people running the show. And these people who already made their billions of dollars at the top, it really won't matter because they'll try to find some other way, bribing local politicians and stuff like that. It's just a system of corruption that tries to rip off the lowest level because the lowest level has no defense. Well, the defense is we're just not going to work for you anymore, and you're going to have to figure out what to do, and the people that will work for you will not have the same skills as the people that you had working before, and then you're going to end up having to pay for all kinds of lawsuits against your company that you'll have to go bankrupt, file Chapter 7, or end up having the company completely dissolved and the ownership being forbidden to engage in that business again. But that usually doesn't happen. That only happens to little guys like me and other drivers. But the CEOs and stuff like that, they've already made their money. So for them, it's just a toy. And the drivers, Uber and Lyft, well, the drivers should do a 3-day strike. Don't work for 3 days if you can afford it. So that's my opinion on it. I hope I don't get I hope I don't get shot or something like that walking out the door of my house. Well, anyway, that would solve a lot of my problems. But this is just nuts. When I heard about this on the news, these corporations are taking 70% of the revenue. This is hearsay. 70% of the revenue that the drivers are making for Uber and Lyft. And who knows, these companies might not even be based out of the United States. They might have been bought out by foreign actors in countries that have absolute disdain for their own people. And I can see that. So anyway, that's my opinion on it. I am withdrawing my applications with Lyft and Uber. because I'm not gonna. I worked in this industry when it was really really good, and it was really really good pay, and even though my boss was a hothead, he was reasonable, and you could fight with him, not a fist fight. He would have tore me up because he was bigger than me, and he would have. But he was a good guy, and if you had trouble, if you were in trouble for something, and this is what I equate in my mind of my opinion of Jewish Italians is, okay, you have to put up with the noisiness, okay? I didn't grow up in that culture, so I'm not used to it. Usually, the way I grew up, if trouble was coming, you didn't know until you were flat on the floor. The Jewish Italians, they blow up and get all angry and stomp around and make all kinds of noise and then say, okay, get back to work. Because they realize that the good workers are the good workers. And in this day and age, human capital in the United States is meaningless. Any job that you work for, the company's assumption is no matter how good you are at what you do, you're disposable. They can replace you with anybody, and they're hiring immigrants, which I have nothing against because I know these people are looking for a better life. But these people who are new to America are easy targets, and that's why we're having so much trouble at the border. Because it's not just the bad guys. The bad guys are the ones we hear about all the time. But they are way outnumbered by the good people that are coming in that are trying to make a good deal in the United States. And they're being taken advantage of the same way as the Lyft and Uber drivers. So, I was trying to figure out what that ticking sound is, and I just looked at my camera. It is my cat, Jules. He's an old man cat, and he likes to thump his tail. So every time you hear that little tick, he's thumping his tail on my blinds. So anyway, I started to break that rant there, but it's just funny. And that's their lookout thing. I was working so much at one time that I didn't have any time to take care of my house and stuff like that. And now I have too much time, but I have no money. That's the way the world works. So anyway, Lyft and Uber, you guys are making a big mistake, in my opinion. What you need to do is dissolve those two companies, take your money and run, and let a whole bunch of other little companies take over. Because if you're not serving your drivers, you're not serving the public. Because you're going to have a whole bunch of angry people who are going to be, let's say, at the very least, disappointed in the lack of service as far as service. You'll still be able to drive around and stuff like that and pick up people, but you lower the pay, you lower the skills, and that's called capitalism. And it's too bad that it has to be that way. Greed seems to be the thing that's driving the world right now. Everybody's trying to make their bitcoins and whatnots, whatever. But when it boils down to it, if you have people that aren't working, and robots aren't sophisticated enough yet to overcome face-to-face interaction. And that's what it is. We aren't at that level yet where working people are entirely disposable. Now, I'm not going to gripe at other companies that have their issues, but human capital is human capital. Flesh and blood were meant to be interfacing with each other, not just with cold machines. I can't blame it on COVID, but COVID just turned everybody, the American society at least, into a antisocial, on guard all the time, paranoid of everything. And you know what? I drove through the whole COVID thing. I didn't have any problems at all because I'm sociable and I recognize people's boundaries and stuff like that. And yeah, there's this conspiracy to make everybody hate everybody, and that's the only thing that COVID result of COVID, in my opinion. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to my blather. Have a good night, and drive careful. It's winter time here in Utah. Don't be a nut. And if you don't know how to drive in the weather, get a taxi. Don't do Uber and don't do Lyft, because you're not helping your other drivers. You know, do a taxi or something like that, or hire a private car. Because I'll almost guarantee that these guys, these private cars that have all their insurance in shape and everything like that, they don't need Lyft and Uber because they already have their network built up. They're going to make lots of money with this. And Uber and Lyft aren't going to have any control, and they can crybaby about it and everything like that, and they can bribe the politicians to change the rules and everything like that. And that's fine. All the drivers have to do is say, "We're on strike. Go find a bicycle. You know, ride the bus. You know, get an electric bike. Ride it all the way from South Salt Lake up into to Central Salt Lake or whatever." You know, it's going to be inconvenient for everybody, and it's going to have the least amount of effect on the lowest level of society, because they're used to taking advantage of the system anyway. So, Lyft and Uber, you guys gotta work on your little hooty-doo there, or go out of business so that the rest of us drivers can move in and take care of our passengers the way they need to be taken care of, with happy drivers, competent drivers, and drivers who actually want to work. As there it is. Yeah, it's theoretically nighttime. My internal clock is still messed up. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Yeah. Have a happy New Year and everything like that. And for you drivers out there, be careful. Don't drive too fast. There'll probably be way more business than you can handle. So take the ones you can get, and there it is. Have a good night, and heaven bless. Whatever you believe, heaven bless. Thank you.